This evening's speaker is Eldon Godfrey, and first I want to thank Eldon. As you know, George Vandenberg had to cancel out, so I moved Simon up, and Eldon graciously helped me fill that spot without having to rearrange the entire year. So I want to thank Eldon personally for that. Now, Eldon is somebody I've known for quite a while, as we've both served on the BNAP's executive for a number of years. Now, before I get into the flattery part of Eldon, I think you all ought to know this is a special person, at least in my mind. For years, he has been an Olympic and a world championship judge in the diving venue. And as a result, he's in the Diving Hall of Fame. And I think it was last year or the previous year, he was elected to the Order of Canada. So pretty cool guy. Anyway, Eldon was born in Lethbridge, Alberta in 1935. He began his schoolboy collection in England during World War II, a collection which he left behind when the family returned to Canada in 1948. Collecting did not begin until, as a corporate auditor, Eldon met the late Bob Taquir, then president of the Calgary Philatelic Society, who asked if he had any interest in stamps and invited him to attend a meeting in 1960. With new friends, Eldon developed a collection accumulation of RPOs and the Queen Victoria issue of 1899. Eldon became a member of the British North America Philatelic Society and the Calgary Group in February of 1964. Eldon served the CPS in each of the executive positions of secretary, treasurer, and president, and as treasurer of the 1966 BNAPEX Calgary exhibition, and has served BNAPs as a director, vice president, president, and past president. You forgot that one, Eldon. Eldon's philatelic memberships and activities have been interrupted on 2 occasions, initially to a change in professional life and subsequently for 34 years in volunteer administrative services in domestic and international sport. That would be the diving. Returning to BNAPS in 2006, the issues of King George VI captured his attention, and now how he wishes the covers and pre-cancels that he received in England from his grandparents and aunts and uncles during the war, he wishes he still had them. Eldon's presentation tonight comes from about due to his curiosity, and I'll keep this short, about the FECB, the Foreign Exchange Control Board. He's found numerous covers, and I've seen a number of his publications and exhibits. He has written articles for the CPS of GB, dealing with World War II postal slogans and BNAPS topics, and the BNAPS King George VI Study Group Post and Mail. Eldon, his first time Eldon exhibited, it was on the FECB, and he won the BNAPS Novice Award at BNAPEX 2015, and in 2017 he was elected to the Order of the Beaver. I give you Eldon Godfrey.
Thank you, Ken. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to be with you to share part of this St. Patrick's Day evening. I hope that the material that I show you tonight and the stories behind it are a little more exciting than the litany of what Eldon did in the last 86 years. But we'll worry about that on another day. The subject of mine is related to the Foreign Exchange Control Board, and I've got to do some screen sharing. The topic is the implementation of foreign exchange controls during World War II. Foreign Exchange Control Board came into existence with an order in council on September 15th, 1939. And while the World War ended in censorship in August of 1945, the requirements of the Foreign Exchange Control Board remained in place until December 14th, 1951. And what is this all about? Well, it's the manuscript passed for export. It's on a cover dated October 24, 1939. And I saw this passed for export stuff, and I thought, well, I had no idea what it was. So I thought I better try and find out. And in doing that, I managed to engage a friend, a true pen pal, Jeff Switt, a Texan who had done some work on this subject before, some extensive work actually. Anyway, the flow of my presentation tonight will follow the offices, the seals, the authorized for export, permit authorizations, a very interesting piece of international security, which is a special in Canadian history beyond being philatelic, suspicious mail, and some other material. The introduction then will tell me that it's on September 10th that Canada enters World War II. And the Ordering Council in 2716 under the War Measures Act is the FECB is established on the 15th of September. Its purpose is to govern the export and the import of currency and securities through the mail, censorship of international security. How are we going to do that? Well, we were going to engage all the postmasters in the country, given and required to exercise a pseudo-censorship authority. Banks, insurance companies, and others acted as agents, and permit authorization was available to expedite commerce. The Foreign Exchange Control Board fell under the chairmanship of Graham Ford Towers through its entire period, September 15th to December 14th of 51. This cover is a cover that is a domestic cover bearing Towers' signature for free service. It's a Buell Combustion Company is a British company which on June the 28th, 1940, had patented a cylindrical dust separator. And I think that is how they became engaged with National Steel Car. And being a corporate entity and wanting to do business in Canada, it would appear that they've had some meetings with Mr. Towers. Here we have an international cover going to the United States of America. And you'll notice it bears the authorized for export by the Foreign Exchange Control Board. That is the same self-audit stamp as is used by the banks. And it's an indication that the communications of the Foreign Exchange Control Board are consistent with the requirements of everybody else. They have to satisfy that their correspondence and the contents thereof are as authorized. Regulation 7A. Every postmaster and postal clerk shall act as an agent of the board. Pursuant to this regulation, it became necessary that the words passed for export be written or stamped on an envelope by the postmaster or postal clerk to indicate the contents did not violate the regulations. Here we have the Canada Gazette, September 15th, 1939. And right down here is the Ordering Council and the Foreign Exchange Control Order and Regulations. Here we have correspondence between neighbors. Graham Towers, as the chairman of the board, communicated with Mariner Eccles, who was the chairman of the board of the U.S. Treasury, and he did so on the date here. Oops, I went backwards. I can't do that. Oh well. He did that to ensure that at the US level, there would be an understanding of what Canada was doing. Because, of course, at that time, the United States remained neutral in respect of the proceedings of the war. An interesting neutrality when you look at it further, you'll note that the relationships were maintained throughout leading up to December of 1941. Relationships were maintained with the Allied countries and not so with the Axis countries. Instructions to postmasters on September 19th, 1939. Now, these dates are critical to trying to establish when the process actually fell into shape. The 12th the 12th day of the signatory was a Tuesday, and this is when we made a correspondence to the postmasters. The initial correspondence would be between the board and the district directors, of which there are 21 districts, which you'll look at later, and from the postmaster, from the director to the postmaster. This cover is the cover of the communication on September 19th. The Halifax director to the Inverness, Nova Scotia postmaster. Here we have the communication that was in that it was and still is in that envelope, and it outlines to postmasters in the Halifax district. It outlines all the procedures that he will be required to follow in this earliest stages of the operation of the order. Forms B, D, and K will be referenced later in the presentation. Passed for export, manuscript, handwritten passed for export. Toronto Postal Station, an early date, Thursday, September 21st. Tuesday, September 19th is when that communication went from the director to the Inverness post office. It's probably not unreasonable to expect that other district directors communicated with their postmasters on that 19th, because once you fit a weekend into the gap from Friday the 15th, it just leaves you Monday to get anything further done. Though I'm not sure what the work day or the work expectations of the people involved might have been at that point. It certainly was something of urgency. And this is a nice little cover going to the Argentine Republic, and it carries passed for export. And here we have the same day, Thursday, September the 21st, unmarked, from Dalhousie, New Brunswick. Well, I don't know on what date the district director at St. John may have received his information and how long it take him to convey it to the postmaster in Dalhousie. But we do know that on September 21st, we are not making any notation to the effect that the contents are passed for export. And this is getting the cart before the horse, but it seemed to be a pretty decent thing to do in this particular case, and that's the notice of termination. And the purpose of doing that is to try and fix the beginning and end. The confirmation of December 14th, 1951. This is a confirmation letter written by Louis Razminski, who later became a governor of the Bank of Canada and succeeded the governorship that was also held at the time formerly by Graham Towers. And he mailed his confirmation of the telephone call that had been made to the directors on December 14th. Then, of course, the directors would have to get the information to the postmasters. And so it's not unreasonable to find some covers still going through the process subsequent to December 14th. In fact, even a little after December 21st. I have one that I think goes beyond the reasonableness, which I'll speak to you about later. And so the cover that I'm showing here, passed for export, a hand stamp. The hand stamp passed for export is a cover going to Honolulu. It is dated December the 12th. I am looking for 13, 14 through 21, and I've not been able to find one as yet. But I will not give up the search. Obviously, I say obviously, and yet in many respects it is obvious that at the outset of this new set of regulations to be followed by postmasters and directors, that there could be some early confusion. This cover is a private transaction of stamps for a collector. It was passed for export by manuscript in Alliston, Ontario on the 10th of October, 1939. It then went forward to in Vancouver, where it was rejected on October 14th. This particular collector and this communication was addressed to North China, Shanghai, North China. And it also has on the top of it the words contents postage stamps for collectors. It was stopped by censor number 166. It is a Vancouver censor. It was returned to the mailer together with this flimsy, which, by the way, remains attached to this cover. I hope it will always be that way. And it explains why it's being sent back. And that's on this Form C number 7. The letter is returned as it is undesirable that postage stamps should be imported or exported at the present time. Now, we have a more early confusion. Here we have, but we have a different communication. This is a private transaction for stamps for a collector, originating in Beauport, Quebec, rejected by censor C18. He's an Ottawa censor. The cover is going to Belgium. It has a 5 cents surface rate to Belgium, and the flimsy is written on both sides. It's English on one side, and it's French on the other side. And oh, by the way, that form, interesting enough, is called form number 7 1/2. So now we get to the question of the postmasters handling their material. We have the passed for export hand stamp. And in addition, Ruel in Moncton decided rather than scribble his initials across here, he would have his own hand stamp, which he did. Here we have passed for export by J1 from Fredericton. Fredericton have 4 or 5 different hand stamps with different personal identifications on them. Here we have Altona, Manitoba, another passed for export with a signature of the postmaster. Accepted for export. Here we have accepted for export, not passed for export, accepted for export by the Cartier Stamp Company, May 25th, 1940. Here we have accepté pour exportation in manuscript on February the 18th, 1940, addressed to Colonel Georges Vanier, Ministre du Canada, Legation Canadienne in Paris. When it became a little hot to handle in Paris, Colonel Vanier moved his office to London, and when he was able to then restore the situation in France and in Paris, he returned to conduct his ministry in Paris. Vise pour envoi à l'étranger. This is on March 8, 1941. Again, manuscript right down here. And that was in Montreal. It was further intercepted and examined by an examiner. Accepté pour export à l'extérieur. Manuscript, March 21st, 1944. Here it is here. Accepté pour export à l'extérieur, and the initial of the postmaster. Vise pour envoi à l'extérieur. Here we have the manuscript wording, and the cover moves forward. And here we have the first bilingual hand stamp, passed for export, vise pour envoi à l'extérieur. A nice little cover that is headed to South Africa. This is a nice little cover. I must admit it's in because I don't have any other covers with $7 stamps on it. But what we have here is a communication to New York, and if we look at it, it's registered to London, and it goes at 3 cents for the first half ounce, and then 30 cents for the first half ounce, and then 23 times 30 gives us a total of $6.90 plus 10 cents for the registration. That would mean that the cover had a weight of between 5 and 6 ounces to come up with the 23. This is one that has some personal feeling about it. You'll notice it's salvaged from the sea. And you'll notice that the ink writing up here, pass for export, there's some leaching of the ink in consequence of this being wet. This care package is from Dilkey, Saskatchewan on November the 9th, 1942. The recipient is Private Walter Scott of the 10th Canadian Field Ambulance. The reason I say it has interest to me, and Ken introduced me, he mentioned that from 1936 till 1948, I was with my parents in England, and we received packages packaged just like that, for birthdays, for religious holidays, and for any other reason that my aunts and uncles could come up with to package some stuff up and send it overseas. So I have memories of this sort of thing. It was honey, cookies, and candy, and it had a net weight of 4 pounds 13 ounces. Anyway, salvaged from the sea. So how about these examination offices? To deal with circumstances arising when the local postal clerk faced uncertainty, he could forward it to the district director for further examination, the district superintendent of postal services. And there were established 21 offices in Canada. We have here we have a listing of them. No point in spending a lot of time other than to say that any of the material that we find will come from these. And from the point of view of my collection and accumulation, I have collections and groupings under these titles, some being more difficult than others. The correspondence of the chief postal censor, Jolliffe, is interesting because he says, as regards mail to the United States, I beg to say we do not censor mails to this country. He then goes on and says a few things, and then he says, if you've opened something, it should be closed with the official post office sticker used in dead letter work, rather than the censorship label, which might indicate general censorship, whereas such is not the case. I mentioned to you that in the Towers Eccles correspondence, they addressed this particular issue, and that we would not be censoring mail going into the United States. And here we have an example on October 30th, 1940, Censor 103, censoring a letter that originates in Halifax. We have Boularderie West, Nova Scotia, another similarly Examiner C320. And we have another 452 Moncton, again, the censorship label appears. So anyway, what happened, of course, is that on September 22nd, 1939, the dead letter office seals were used by offices when resealing. And DLO seals were on hand prior to the printing and receipt of FECB seals. The first printing of FECB seals is dated 15th of February, 1940. However, the seals do not appear to have been available for use until April. And so here we have on November the 13th, 1939, from Montreal, dead letter office. Carefully look here, you'll see at dead letter office, and which is part of the printing of the resealing label. We have from London, Ontario, November the 21st. We have from February, Calgary in February of 1940. Notice February 24th, which is later than the earlier February date. We have London on February 28th, 1940, where the district director's canceling device over the DLO seal and pass for export. And Ottawa on March 27th, 1940. Now, if you might expect somebody to have on hand the new FECB seal, I don't think it's unreasonable for me to say I expect that would be in Ottawa. And here we are now at March 27th, 1940. Pass for export. And the reading opened at dead letter office and mailed by, and there he goes. So now we come to the question of the FECB seals, because it became obvious to people who were receiving these correspondence with the DLO label that the mail wasn't damaged and there was no reason for it to be of concern. So we now get a new label, which will be used for our FECB. These went through 8 printings. The first printing being dated the 15th of February, 1940. And you'll notice, of course, there were 3 covers that I showed you that were dated with the DLO later than that later than that date. And then subsequently 7 more printings to a total of 8 printings. Each of 15 seals would account for 7.8 million seals. An interesting factor here is that on the first printing, and here's examples of all from each of the 8 printings. On the first printing, notice here that we have a post office Ottawa, date April the 8th, 1940. And I think when we went back, we had, if we were to go back, we had, as I recall, March 27, 1940, with a DLO seal, April 8, 1940, with the new approach. And then we have, you will notice that where the examiner signs it, it says censorship clerk. Now, that term censorship clerk was found offensive to our friends in the United States. And so that word was changed to read examiner on each of the next 7 printings. And here's an example from the 8th printing, 1944. This is a nice cover. It is mailed to the Reverend Père Roger Germain, I think, but Roger for sure, at Navrongo, Northern Territories, Gold Coast, West Africa. Presume that Reverend Roger was, Père Roger was a missionary at the time in 1944 in West Africa. The banks were, now if all you have to do is stop and say, oh my goodness, or some other expletive, when you think of the handling of correspondence by the banks. You can picture a queue of bank clerks from the bank lining up at the post office at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon to hand over all the stuff that has to be certified as being authorized for export. So what happened is that in the instructions to postmasters on May 11th, there were listed 14 banks as authorized dealers in foreign exchange, and on the premises of the bank, a bank clerk specifically assigned would authorize for export on behalf of the board and put the authorization stamp on the cover and put his initial on it. So we have authorized for the Bank of Canada, and authorized for the Bank of Canada is in this particular case, it appears to be a money letter. Let me see. Yes, this is a money packet, and the rate of postage on a money packet is 7 cents for the first ounce plus 5 cents for each additional ounce. And so for yields up to 6 ounces, we come up with 37 cents, including the registration fee of 10 cents. Barclays Bank of Canada, they promote themselves on the back flap. Again, authorized for export, Foreign Exchange Control Board, and an initial. I'll go fairly quickly here. The Canadian Bank of Commerce. Now, I will take a minute here. Canadian Bank of Commerce, Whitehorse, Yukon Territory, to the cashier at Colorado in Denver, authorized, and so on. The interesting part about this is that on March the 6th, 1942, branches of in Whitehorse in Puskapay, in Dawson Creek, and Edmonton were established as depositories by the U.S. Department of Treasury for funds transferred in respect of the Alaska Highway project. Now, an advance party of U.S. Officials happened into the Canadian Bank of Commerce in Edmonton and to discuss the transfer of funds. And I'm sure what happened was that the Edmonton manager said, "You're above my pay grade, boys," and presumably contacted his district director and hence the head office. Arrangements were made, and in fact, all transfers of money with respect to the Alaska Highway project were handled by the Canadian Bank of Commerce, incoming and then outgoing. A nice stroke of business by a quick thinking chap. The Dominion Bank, nice little cover going to Hong Kong. Again, here we are, authorized for export, foreign exchange control. And notice there are differences in these. There's another difference in them as well. And Peter Burrows, in his book, identifies many of these, and he identifies them by color. Now, I have enough stuff that I could show different colors of ink, but I'm collecting the authorization. I'm not particularly concerned with how wet the ink pad is, and so, with due respect to my friends who do collect covers and colors, this is a violet, I think. I put this one in because I thought there was an off chance that Ed Croft might be around tonight. This is also the Dominion Bank, and you'll note it is headed to Tel Aviv, Palestine, authorized for export again right here, and it has postage due. It's interesting that it has it shows T6, which is 6 mils, and really the communication is 1 cent short, and should be ranked at 5 cents instead of 4. So now if you pick 1 cent and double the deficiency, you get 2 cents, and 2 times 6 should be 12. But nevertheless, it was handled for a single deficiency. The Imperial Bank of Canada going to the United States. And by the way, I do try to show nice destinations. There's nothing that isn't nice about a U.S. destination, but they are plentiful compared to some of the others. Here we have the Bank of Montreal, and I put this one in today. I took one out and put this in today because it seemed to me that on the 17th of March at a stamp group, we shouldn't forget that on the 17th of March, there's probably some goings on in the Bank of Ireland in Dublin, and there's some goings on all over with respect to Ireland. So here we have authorized for export by the Foreign Exchange Control Board, Bank of Montreal, and a signature, and the cover is off and away to Dublin, Ireland. It is censored here, and it's also censored. I shouldn't have clicked that button. Oh, there, I managed to do it. And you'll notice it's also censored in Ireland, released by censor. Bank of Nova Scotia to New York and also to Manzanillo, Cuba. Royal Bank of Canada going to the Chase Bank in Hong Kong. Bank of Toronto going to Colombia, Cartagena. Again, here we are. Banque Canadienne Nationale going to Vermont. And again, you see, this is a much smaller pica and font than what we've seen before. Montreal City and District Savings Bank, MC&D Savings Bank. This I acquired just a couple of weeks ago. It's the first one I've seen, and I haven't got any references to covers from this savings bank. So I'm quite pleased with the acquisition of this cover going to Aiken, South Carolina, in the U.S., authorized as we would expect. We also, there was the trust companies and insurance companies were listed in 257 insurance companies and 13 others. I got a little bit cart before the horse, but trust companies are involved. And here we have the National Trust. Again, you see so I'm going to stop for a minute and comment on these hand stamps. I think that the past for export hand stamps in the hands of the postmasters all over the country. I don't know how many postmasters there were in the country, but I don't think that there's no indication anywhere that the Canada Post sent the postmasters a hand stamp. I think that in very small areas, the postmaster may have used a manuscript inscription throughout. There may have been areas where the postmaster never handled a piece of outgoing foreign mail. And so I think what likely happened is the postmaster went down to his local stationery shop, ordered up the hand stamp, and put the expense in the expenses of running his post office. Toronto General Trust. This cover is an SS Eros cover. If you're familiar with the situation of the Eros, U-boat 48, which was the top flight killer for the Unterseeboot squadrons from Germany, hit this particular ship, which is the SS Eros, but the Eros did not go down. The records of U-boat activity would indicate that 48 only lost 2 vessels that didn't go to the bottom when she hit them. The situation then is that on June the 8th, 1940, the Eros was hit. She was hit off the north coast of Ireland, and was rescued because a rescue ships had gone out previously to try and save another ship, which unfortunately did go to the bottom, but they were able to pick up some crew and so on. And here we have the Royal Trust Company. We have some of these markings through the meter that win the war, buy savings bonds with an airplane on it. Steve Friedenthal is, as far as I'm concerned, a guru on this material. I've had some communications with him on it, and there's quite an interesting amount. If you have an interest in slogans, then of course this fits right into that interest. 257 insurance companies and 13 others granted authority to self-approve. And so, and you noticed it's approved rather than authorized. This is the Mutual Life of New York. And it has it put its own wording to the matter. Routine correspondence only, approved for export on behalf of the Foreign Exchange Control Board. London Life, Now this one is help win the war, buy war savings stamps. The last one was savings bonds. This one's savings stamps. And we have a soldier on it. National Life, again, similar situation. Big notification that we're approved. And we have Sun Life Assurance. And this, as you see, also is service suspended. The that sensor number 282 is in Vancouver, and the cover was returned to the sender. Unfortunately, I don't have any markings to show you to substantiate that, save that the pointing finger would indicate that you were going back. Now, it is possible that handling it may have been decided that having marked it mail service suspended, maybe what we should be doing with it is putting it in an ambulance cover and sending it back to Sun Life. And we have Canadian Pacific Express Company, one of the special agents, and John Johnson and Gary Thomason, their perforated initials are in evidence here. International security. This is an interesting story, and it goes beyond philatelic. It goes to Canadian history of occurrence that happened during the war. August 1943, FECB fulfilled a role in international security. They did so as a censor. Remember that the examiners were told they're not there to censor. They're there to ensure that there's no currency or stock certificates or any financial instruments in the envelope. You're not supposed to read, "Dear Aunt Sally, it's so nice to be writing to you today." That's not on. So what happened is that the Quebec conference with President Roosevelt and Prime Minister Churchill, it took place in Quebec, and Mackenzie King was the host. They met to resolve strategic issues related to Normandy invasion and the war in the South Pacific. And President Roosevelt spent 3 days fishing in McGregor Bay, Manitoulin Island. Now, he loved to go fishing, and so he couldn't pass up this opportunity. On July 31st, Chief Postal Censor Jolliffe wrote, "Most secret, divert to your office during the next week all letter mail posted on Manitoulin Island addressed to the United States. This mail is to be examined for information to the effect that the President of the United States is visiting a point on the island. Harmless mail may be closed with the usual FECB label and sent on for delivery." Note, it did not say be closed with the census label. It said it will be closed with the usual FECB label and sent on for delivery. Here we have a cover from Gore Bay. The Gore Bay cover is dated August 4, 1943. It was forwarded by the Gore Bay postmaster. In fact, I think it's August 2nd, Gore Bay, forwarded by the Gore Bay postmaster, as he was instructed to do, to the North Bay district director. North Bay district director opened the envelope, examined it, resealed it on August the 4th, 1943, 43, sorry, and sent it on its way. The interesting about this particular cover, let me just see here. Well, without using a reference, there were approximately 2,500 covers, 2,500 pieces of mail handled in the North Bay office during that week ending August the 7th. And then, of course, the Roosevelt had gone on to Quebec for the conference, which took place August 10 to 24. And the significant part of this particular cover is that, at least I feel it's significant. It's the only one that I have seen. It was a discovery cover discovered by our good friend from Texas, Jeff Switt. Jeff was doing some work in this area, and I have it because Jeff knew what I was trying to do, and he wrote me a note when he was getting rid of a lot of his material. He wrote me a note and said, "I think this piece belongs with you," and we made a private arrangement, and it belongs with me. But we still don't, and so anybody who's looking at any of these FECB covers and district directors stamps from North Bay, there's not a lot of them, but if you find North Bay, look carefully at the date as between December the 2nd and December the 4th and December the 7th. August, I should say. So now we've got another matter of international security, but it relates to suspicious mail. And prohibitory orders were issued against different organizations, individuals, and corporations. Most of the listed companies contain German names or reference German, Hanover, and Slovak, German sounding and foreign names and writing styles attracted FECB attention. The also Asian. This is a this cover here is a cover addressed to a man named Schmalzriedel, and this little one is addressed to a Sam Waugh, and of course it has been sent to the district director, and it's been opened and it's been resealed. In this particular case, Sam Waugh is communicating with a countryman located in the United States, and we've got the Chinese here. When you look at this particular label, the label was affixed by Moose Jaw, and then it has been overstamped by Vancouver. I don't know why they would overstamp it. I don't know why it just didn't go on its way. It obviously got forwarded to Vancouver for some unknown reason. And here we have a more international suspicious mail, the Sing Sang Company in Vancouver and May's Photo Service in San Francisco being the addressee. Now, censoring postcards is a tricky bit at best, as far as I'm concerned. However, it is known that letters such as "Howdy Dorlies" could very well be written to somebody else. Could very well have code words in it that had something to do. In this particular case, however, I think that this got passed for export, and it got the Toronto hand stamp because it was addressed to Fort Worth, and Fort Worth was where the B-24 bomber was built. This one, a similar type of thing, and it's addressed to Pratt & Whitney aircraft. So I suppose if you're very sensitive, and depending on how you're viewing what's going on and how much you know the person that has written the card, if they've written the card and just thrown it in the regular stuff, I don't know how it would necessarily come up this way, but there you go. Permit authorization. Now, while the banks and the trust companies and insurance companies had a method of handling things, the permit system was developed to handle frequent commercial mailers. And it was required to present the correspondence directly to the postmaster, write a hand stamp the envelope making reference to the permit number. It was also endorsed pass for export. These are the forms, and these forms were all provided in full detail in that September letter from Towers to Eccles, which received a very polite response from Eccles. And Form B, you almost could write in here, Form B, application for stamp dealers. I have seen more Form B stamp dealer covers than you can shake a stick at. Form D is an application for a permit to export goods. This is a particular license to export goods. Form F is an application for foreign exchange. G, to transfer Canadian dollars to a non-resident. K, to export property other than goods. That really means you're talking about securities. And H is an add-on, an application for foreign exchange by an individual for travel purposes. I have this one here because I put this one in for the Form B, which says here, pass for export, B1, B received, and an initial. And it was mailed by Leslie Davenport, a familiar name to all of us. And it was addressed to Saint-Pierre and Miquelon. I chose to put it in as an example tonight, because our good friend Jim Taylor is, of course, very much in Saint-Pierre and Miquelon. Here is BD. This is the particular goods and other goods. So that is the permit number BD 154. Here we have F, and that is the form to request foreign exchange. Again, passed, and F out of High River clears through Calgary. Here's Form G, passed for export, cleared through Calgary. This 612 Grain Exchange building, I haven't done anything on it, but I believe that's where a very prominent Canadian law firm had its offices. Well, Form K, Permit K2, and that is a form that would be required in quadruplicate in this particular case. A form required in quadruplicate to accompany a letter that is containing secure stock securities and such. And the travel permit. This is a short form one. You can stick that in your pocket and off you go. The next, this is also the travel permit. This is the long form. A little bit of amusement here. I hereby apply to the Foreign Exchange Control Board to take with me out of Canada banknotes, coin, and traveler's checks up to the amount specified, 25 Canadian dollars and 20 US dollars. And he's going to go to the he's going to go to the United States with $45 in his pocket. Those were, I think there's a song that goes back to, those were the days, my friend. In fulfilling its mandate to control the outward flow of currency, we're also authorized to examine incoming mail. Openshaw is an interesting person. I'd like to know more about him. Maybe some of our BC friends can help. I think he is I think he was a sort of an can you say an unofficial stamp dealer. He has his correspondence comes in quite frequently with blocks of 4, and the other thing is he could be subscribing to someone's efforts in a first day cover type of thing, but I didn't search that out. But clearly it was registered in Suva, and here you can see the word examiner very clearly on this particular form. Submitted to customs. Now, all imports of goods and property other than goods, including letters which are considered as containing any such imports, by letter or parcel post, must be submitted to the collector of customs and excise for examination. The collector will not release them until suitable import forms have been filed. And so here we have a label to be transferred to customs, import or outport nearest to the place of the addressee. Do not deliver until it's been examined. And so you can see it's been opened and it's been opened and resealed, and it's been opened and resealed, and this resealing has been done by customs. Now, when you're looking at mail to the USA, registered mail to the USA was examined on the basis of 1 in 50 during the period January 12 to September 10, 1942. And then on September the 11th, 1942, all registered mail to the USA was examined. And this is a personal note here, in a rather unusual regulatory sense, it was determined that registered mail from correspondences which had proven to be in order was to pass without inspection. It strikes me that's a bit of a loophole through which you could drive a bus. In fact, maybe even a London double-decker. We'll see. And so here we have a communication to the United States, passed for export, registered, and it is examined in Vancouver, November 19th, 1941. And it's passed for export, but FEC 1 in 50 examination. The next one we get is the mandatory. This is September 18th, 1943, being after September 11th, 1942. And it again shows passed for export and has been handled in this particular case in Calgary. And a Form B has been submitted. It's going to Harrison Company, Philatelic House in Boston. And I presume since Form B has been submitted, it's going from a philatelist or a philatelic dealer in Calgary. So the other thing about mail to U.S. banks and insurance companies was that we wanted to detect the ownership of unauthorized bank accounts and other financial assets. All private correspondence addressed to USA banks and insurance companies was subject to examination. And on July 31, 1944, ordinary mail was accepted. So here we have a communication going to the Bank of Hawaii. It's been examined, and one would have to assume notice duly taken as to whether there was anything that we wanted to know about the mailer. Passed by U.S. Customs, Honolulu free. American Mutual Liability Insurance Company. It picks up 6 cents of postage due because this was supposed to be free if it was mailed in the United States, but it was mailed in Hamilton. And then there's a question of what do you do if there's any money enclosed? And so in 1940, FECB examiners were permitted to forward to destinations in British Empire, North, Central, and South America, letters containing Canadian or US currency in amounts not in excess of $1. I think if I gave $1 to my granddaughter for her birthday, she'd think I'd lost my mind. On June the 6th, 1945, the limitation was raised to $5. My gracious. So here we have a situation of money exceeding regulations. And here we have the nature of a communication. Unfortunately, these two, the cover and this communication are not, this isn't the content of that cover. But here it says, the ordinary letter mailed by you, which is described hereunder, has been examined under FECB regulations and cannot be permitted to go forward to its destination in view of the nature of the contents. The date is April 5th, 42. The addressee is the Philharmonic Symphony Society, and the contents is $2. If you remember, we only could use $1. We hadn't got to the level of $5 yet. Now, this communication is mailed together with the writer's letter in an ambulance cover and is returned to him. The envelope contained 25 cents Canadian per notation inside the envelope at the examined end. And that's something that a person needs to do when they're looking at FECB covers. If they're thinking about it, they can look and see if there's any notations on the underside of the flap, or if there's any notation anywhere else within the envelope. Money enclosure in 1943, the envelope contained 50 cents for a notation on the envelope at the examined end. And this was handled by our district director, and it was also officially opened and officially sealed in the United States. This was going to the Free Tract Society. I'm not sure what the Free Tract Society was. Guess I can spend some time and find out. But clearly there was some interest at the US level in mail addressed to the Free Tract Society. And another exceeding regulations, FEC was authorized to seize letters containing $25 or more. And what happened in that case, particularly if these were what you would call ordinary, normal types of transactions, but they had more than $25 in them, what happened? They were held, and at the end of the period of the war, they were put in ambulance covers and returned to individuals. So they seized the letters for a period of time, but the individual was reunited with his mail. And a registration fee claimed in this particular case. And here are some references. And these references will bring a close to my comments to you tonight. Jeff Switt, when I first started looking for this stuff, I went to the Horace Harrison Library of Banaps and searched the subject. And from the subject search, I found articles written by Jeff Switt. And that just whetted my interest even more. There are also some correspondence exchanges in letters to the editor of B&A Topics. David Whiteley is I believe is a history professor at the University of Winnipeg or University of Manitoba. And his monograph, The Foreign Exchange Control Board and the Canadian Post Office, is an outstanding piece of work, in my opinion. It benefits greatly from the fact that David got access to the archives of the Bank of Nova Scotia. So the monograph that he produced has a very heavy flavor of bank information flowing out of the bank that bank. Peter Burrows has British Empire civil censorship, World War II, and in the case of being interested in North America, of course, we're looking at volume 7, and it is extensive. He has in his book done reproductions of those hand stamps that you saw, and he's dated them with his earliest known date and his latest known date. The problem as it always exists when you deal with earliest and latest dates is that when you have a book that is edited in the year 2010, we're now in the year 2021. Unless you can find a subscription service or deal directly with Peter, those dates may or may not be relevant. The Library and Archives of Canada, and the people there were just, I was just delighted. They treated me so very well. I sent them a letter in advance that I was coming and I'd like to see some material, and I got access to their files. In the meantime, Robert Lemire had a block of reproductions of material from the archives, and so with Robert's material and my material, I have a very bulky box of material. And then I wrote 12 articles for BNA Topics, articles 1 to 12, which covered the subject that I've just done. And then at the bottom, you'll see that link, Fraser, St. Louis. That is the file. I found it by going on my old friend Google, and I found this file, and it is the Towers Eccles Towers communication, and it provides a great deal of information. I mentioned those permits, everything that you want to know to start out this subject. You'll get a great dose of it by reading that. And so, President, Chairman Bob, and Ken, for introducing me and the subject. I hope I haven't bored you all to tears, and I thank you very much.
Take this opportunity to thank you, Eldon, for a wonderful presentation tonight. It was really, really interesting, and as we can see from the discussion after, I think it must have been a real, I don't know how long you've been collecting all these, but it's probably really fun to, treasure hunt for all the different kinds of hand stamps and all the different varieties that are available. And I think it's a really interesting aspect of wartime postal history, and a great example of how postal history can give us a glimpse into, the real events that happened, right? I love that story about FDR and his fishing trip and how they censored all the letters coming off Manitoulin. So thank you again, and for jumping in and presenting on your first official meeting as a member. So thank you very much.